What's up, brothers and sisters? Your brother G World 7 underscore D. I want to make this quick post on, make this quick video about history and continue to tell you to do your research, man. Continue to do your deep research. Continue to find out the truth. Continue to seek that real knowledge, brothers and sisters. I go back. I sometimes look up some of my old videos to see what I can improve on and to even get tighter with my research, my references and stuff. But these white folks that come in my stuff, man, they say the dumbest thing, the most asinine things, but they're not indigenous to a damn thing. They're white. White folks not indigenous to nothing. They come from us. All right. They're albinoid versions of us originally. They originally come from us. And it just really hits them bad. All these other groups are basically a different form of amalgamation between a black-white mixture. That's what these other groups are. And these individuals hate us. Black people are the melanated people, are indigenous people on this planet. All right, I'm not no kumbaya person. Melanated so-called black people are the original people of this planet. Everywhere in this planet. So when you try to get a white person to argue, oh, black people are not the original people here, or these people that, no. The original people on this planet, on all corners of this planet, were so-called Negro people. The original so-called people of Mongolia were of darker hue. They were not pale skinned. White folks, like I said before, are not indigenous to Europe. In so many of my posts. They're not indigenous to a damn thing. But they have placed themselves in history that they had nothing to do with. They have conditioned us to think that we just come from one region, and that's Africa. Or particularly sub-Saharan Africa. I had a jackass come in my post trying to say, well, that term is not racist. That it's just basically talking about the tribes that's sub-Saharan, that's in the south of the Sahara. Not knowing that I know that some so-called tribes, many of them were in the southern part of Africa, did migrate up north and into Europe. But his dumbass didn't do no studying himself. And didn't think I knew about that. But so-called black people, globally, they never stayed in just one little pocket region. They always traveled out. They was always explorers. Wanting to seek other land. Build another land. Grow another land. They weren't just situated in one region. That's why I always emphasize that our ancestors used ships to travel. They were explorers. They charted the skies. We have always done that. So, when you get these little white jackasses that come to your post, man, these people can't stand the fact that this information is coming out. So your traditional Negro scholarship, educated at predominantly white institutions or HBCU schools, they only go by what they have been taught on what so-called black history is, or mistaught. And they continue to teach that lie to our people. Whenever they see a black person, they just an African. And when you do that, you're basically boxing black skinned people in one region, not understanding that you have people who look like what you call an African in other parts of the world. But they're not African, they're indigenous to that land. Like the black people in Australia. They're indigenous to their land. They've been there for thousands of years. All right, so but when you throw just African on them, and say that, well, they're not Australian, they're African. No, those are Australian Aborigines. They're indigenous to their land. Don't take away them being the first to that land, and that land is theirs. Don't make them a foreigner in their own damn land. But unfortunately, many of your Negro scholars, they do that. They want to make everything African. Which is, there's a connection, but not every single black person is an African. That's what I emphasize. If you've been out the damn continent for 40 to 50 to 60,000 years, are you still an African? Come on, man. Y'all, them Negroes got to stop that. So that's when I hear that stuff, man, it makes me sick. And like I said before, my other posts, these Negroes don't know nothing about the ancient black empires in America. Don't know nothing. Don't even care about it. They don't study it. Because their white masters or their Negro teachers who they honor so much, who were educated by someone white, knew nothing about that and did not talk about that, so they're going to ignore that. And I read, coming up, man, Chancellor Williams. I read books by Dr. John Henry Clark. I read Sheikh Anta Diop. I read, I think it's 4 or 5 of his books. I've read Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen. I read all that stuff, man. I read all of them. I disagree with numerous things they were saying. Ben Surma was the one who really planted that button. Now, he wasn't the first to talk about blacks in America, because what's his name? The guy wrote The African Discovery of America. Man, I forget that dude's name. It's a 3-volume book, but he wrote it back in the 30s. And then Jay Rogers also talked about blacks in ancient America. And then David McRitchie slightly mentioned that in Ancient Modern Britons. I think I mentioned that in one of my posts. But see, I've been studying this for years, and I know that, I remember reading Ben Surma's books. They came before Columbus, and then the ones he did all in the 90s. He kept gradually growing, and it went from African presence to acknowledge the fact that the original people in America were black. And as time, he started to say that in his books. But I want us to really understand, though, is that our people build globally, and they did a great master thing. They knew how. They were great masons. Let's put it this way, true masons, where they were great into carving into natural rock, man, and he did this globally. That's another thing you can pinpoint our great ancestors. They built great civilization, carving into rock globally, to natural geological rock globally, and carving into it, and building structure with natural rock. And it just didn't use no goddamn copper tools, man. The measurements, the mathematics were precisionally aligned. But you Negro scholars won't talk about that. They tell you, like I said, you just from Africa. They're talking about Egypt over in Africa, but they don't talk about the great Egypt here in America. They don't talk about the Egypt here in America. They don't even talk about that, because they can care less about that. Or half of them Negroes don't even know that, or don't want to know. So it's the information's there. Don't let these white folks detract you from learning the true history, because they'll say anything to deflect. But like I said, they're not indigenous to a damn thing on this planet, man. I study their history. I know where they come from. I know when they invaded Europe. They're not indigenous to Europe. They came to Europe. They didn't come about in Europe. They came about in Asia. And they invaded Europe. All right? They invaded Europe in BC and then AD. But they invaded Europe on multiple occasions. These people aren't indigenous to a damn thing. And one YouTuber talking about why we worry about black people in Europe, ancient black people in Europe, we have Africa. That's an idiot to say something like that, man. Because that's a part of our history, particularly blacks in America. Because those were a lot of the blacks who were expelled out of Europe and were shipped here to America, not Africa. But you so locked into so-called Africa because some white historians told you that you came from Africa. Now understand that you had masses of black people being expelled from Europe and they were shipped here to the Americas. That information's out there, but you see silly Negroes don't do no damn research. And yet you get a lot of people listen to them on YouTube. You don't know what the hell they talking about. Like I said, I continue to do research. And there's some stuff that I would even refine some of the information I already know now to add on or make some corrections. But that's a constant learning process. But I'll say this, and I'm going to say this very pointedly. White folks are indigenous to nothing on this planet. And then if you study so-called Asians of today, they come from the mixture of black people known as the Khoisan and white folks. Because you can tell the original people in Asia were darker skinned Negroes because they still in many of these countries. And when you look at the feature of the Khoisan and how they go from a brownish to a yellowish complexion, the various different mixture with so-called these albinoid whites produce the modern day pale Asian or so-called Mongoloid looking person. Even though that terminology is racist too. We use the term Mongoloid, but that's how they came about. So they're not indigenous to nothing. So when these jackasses come on my YouTube page and start posters talking about pale skinned people, black people not indigenous here, shut up. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know your history. And I told one nigger on one of my other posts, one dude, I know it well. Them black people who rule Europe were no, quote, Africans. Those are black Europeans in their castles. You had castles in Europe, you had castles over in Africa, and you had castles here in the Americas. That was a technology that them ancient blacks knew and they built globally. You have mounds all over the damn world. You have pyramids all over the world because these damn black folks had that technology and they built it globally. And the pyramids in America are so old that they're now covered in the rainforest, so-called jungle, because they have not been kept up, like I said before, because there was ancient gardens. What they did, they went to the rainforest, they were able to crop off a whole section for themselves, and then kept other ends of it, kept like created little beautiful gardens around, where it also had walkways that went between the gardens, and they designed great highways. But when that's been abandoned and has not been kept up, then it becomes a rainforest. And all this stuff get buried under the trees. Those black folks who built those civilizations, they all didn't die off. I said it before. Many of them left to other lands. And a large number of them they mixed in with other black people and were captured and became slaves. Those were your black people who were your original slaves in America, not Africa. The original black people who were made slaves in America were Aboriginal, indigenous, or Aboriginal black Indians. They were the ones who made slaves, not from no damn Africa. And I want you, brothers and sisters, that's why I was reading that stuff talking about Indian slavery, because those are the black people that were here who were made slaves. And they've been reclassified, the free people of color, into Negro and now African American. They were reclassified. The original Aboriginal black people here, those tribes, those were the ones who made into slaves. They were the ones who were made into slaves. So you brothers and sisters, you have to understand that. You really have to understand your history. These people have lied and buried your damn history. These people are not your friend, they're the damn enemy, man. You must understand that. When these people will take the time and effort to lie about your history and bury it, man, that's an enemy. That's a big time enemy. And I'm speaking especially to Aboriginal black North Americans, man. Learn your damn history. Don't let these white folks make you a foreigner in your own land. This is your land. This is your country. This is where you're from. This is your home. This is your home. You're not a foreigner in this land. This is your goddamn home, man. Take back all of what's yours. Learn your history. Continue to research, like I've always said. Get into study groups. I don't care. But study your damn history. It's there. It's there for your taking. This is your history. Get it all back. Peace and love, brothers and sisters.